we were discussing the topic of salary and we were discussing some numericals of salary. In fact, I discussed with you one numerical in the last lecture where the assessee has to compute the total income as well as tax liability under two different possible scenarios. One, when he has not opted for optional taxation scheme under section 115 BAC, and another when he has opted for optional taxation scheme under section 115 BAC. Optional taxation scheme under section 115 BAC might give me less tax, but it takes away many benefits and exemptions also from me. So I should not blindly trust or blindly give a conclusion that optional taxation scheme is always better. No, I should solve the numerical. I should compute the tax liability, because ultimately tax liability is the only thing which will tell me which option is better as far as taxation subject is concerned. So I will compute the tax liability under both the options. In case question has asked me to compute tax liability, then I'll compute the tax liability under both the options, and then I will choose which option is better, whether opting for optional taxation scheme or not. If nothing is mentioned in the question and it simply says compute tax liability, then that is incomplete question, because examiner has to tell you whether the assessee has opted for optional taxation scheme or assessee has not opted. So examiner will himself tell you compute the income and tax liability assuming whether the assessee has opted for taxation scheme option or not opted for optional taxation scheme. In case nothing is mentioned and question simply says compute tax liability, then logically you should compute the tax liability with both the options, and then you will say to the examiner that the better option is this option, whether opting for optional taxation scheme or not. And how can I decide which option is better? Ultimately, I have to compute tax liability. So the comprehensive and correct question is which is clear and is clear of any ambiguity, in which there is no ambiguity and no chances of any vague assumption. So it depends what type of questions you will get at any level of examination. After going through that, then you can decide that whether the question is asking you to compute the total income and tax liability with this way that no optional taxation scheme is opted for or optional taxation scheme is opted for. Let me discuss with you now one more numerical. This came in civil services examination. In civil services examination, if you have read about civil services, commerce and accountancy is an option having 500 marks. Out of 500, 60 to 65 marks is tax portion. I wanted to show you, or I want to show you one numerical from civil services also, so that you get a confidence that if some of you are interested in appearing for this civil services also after their graduation, you must realize that that is not a tough exam. It's easy, but you need conceptual clarity. So let me discuss with you one numerical. Obviously from my book, I will discuss one numerical. So let me share the screen, and that is of salary. Please take the screenshot of this problem number 22.
Sir, page?
Yes.
Sir, what is the page number?
Page number is 4.98.
Okay.
Please raise your hand, those of you who are or who have planned to appear for civil services after graduation or after post-graduation. Is there anyone who has planned that they will sit for civil services? Anyone who has decided who will appear for civil services? No one. Okay, that's fine. So I hope you have taken this screenshot. Please raise your hand if you have taken this screenshot. Okay, so let us read this case. This came in 1994, though it's an old question, but still it's good. It will tell you an idea, give you an idea what type of questions can come in different level of examination. If you read or if you attempt income tax, this subject in semester 3 carefully after graduation or any graduation level examination of any university in India, of any competitive examination, you can easily attempt all the questions as far as this subject is concerned, provided you have read this subject carefully and sincerely in your semester 3, then no question is tough for you, which are of undergraduate level. Dr. Kumar is the director of A Limited. Every word has its relevance. A Limited. So it tells me that the employee is a non-government employee. He furnishes the following particulars of his income for the assessment year 21-22. Basic salary 5,000 per month. Bonus 7,500 per month. House rent allowance received 900 per month. He resides in the house belonging to his HUF. He resides in the house belonging to his HUF. So I am having individual identity as well as I have my own Hindu undivided family where also I am a member. And I am living in that house which is of my HUF. I am myself living in the house which is of my HUF and pays rent at the rate of 950 per month in Delhi. So logically that means it is 950 per month rent which I am giving to my own HUF. How will I compute the taxability of house rent allowance? If you remember, least of the 3 points is exempt from tax. Now gradually we can revise it. Whenever any point in any question comes, we should start revising that what concept will be applied. So least of the 3 points is exempt. First point is 50% of salary or 40% depending upon where the residential house is situated. Second point, HRA actually received. Third point, rent paid minus 10% of salary. Now salary for the purpose of HRA means basic salary plus DA forming part plus commission based on fixed percentage of turnover achieved by the employee. If you remember, salary is to be taken on due basis. Do you remember these points of HRA? If yes, please raise your hands. Now it tells you that how much you have revised or how much hard work you have to do in case you have no, in case you don't remember these points of HRA. So you have to check yourself. No one is going to tell you at what level you are standing. You yourself will decide what is your level of study as far as income tax is concerned. If you remember these points, that means it is fine. If you don't remember, that means time has come when you should start practicing. And you are not preparing this subject for only semester 3 graduation examination. No, the purpose is to be an expert in legal subjects, all the subjects of law, where you can read directly from the act, from the court rulings, from notification circulars. So this should be the purpose, not the purpose of only 100 marks in any subject. Knowledge is the purpose. D point. The company has provided him with a car without driver. Company has provided, that means employer has provided, having engine capacity less than 1.6 liter, but recovers 100 per month from him for possible personal use. Can you explain what these two lines want to convey to the reader? Can you explain what is this?
So it means that the car is used for official as well as personal use.
First of all, it is a perquisite in respect of use of car. This is first point. It is a perquisite. Employer has provided, company has provided. So this car is owned by the employer or taken on rent by the employer, doesn't matter, but this car is of employer. Expense also of employer, and it is not clearly mentioned what is the use, but logically you have to check yourself. The point says it recovers, the company recovers 100 per month from him for possible personal use. That means the car is used for official as well as personal. What is the value in this case? Okay, ignore the value, ignore value, I'm not asking, but is this clear that it is a perquisite in respect of car, where the car is owned by the employer, expense are incurred by the employer, and use official as well as personal? If it is clear, please raise your hand. Yes. Next point. In the same point, this car, that means same car, this car was purchased by Dr. Kumar from the company on 1st September 2020 at a book value of 20,000. Can you tell me what this line now signifies? This car was purchased by Dr. Kumar from the company on 1st September 20 at a book value of 20,000. Can anyone tell now what is this? Yes, Arman.
Net of depreciation.
I have not understood.
This is net of depreciation.
I'm not asking that. What this line signifies? Complete concept.
So this is a perquisite of sale of movable asset. Normally we would have to calculate depreciation to come to the fair market value, but since they've given a book value, we can treat that as
no depreciation, normal wear and tear. In the one point itself, there are two perquisites. First was perquisite in respect of use of movable asset. Second, perquisite in respect of sale of movable asset. Now, how do we compute the value of sale of movable asset? It is a car. So what normally we check in sale of movable asset, we check on an average market value, and then we compare it with the sale value. If on an average market value is 2 lakh, and I have purchased it from my employer, that asset for 1,70,000, and 30,000 is the government which thinks that 30,000 is the amount which the government thinks that it is a saving, you include it as your income. So whenever my own and average market value is more than the sale value, there is a benefit, I will include that difference as the income. In this question, I do not know the actual cost of car. In this question, I do not know when the car was purchased and put to use, so it is impossible for me, without assumption, to compute the on an average market value. This is first point. Second, but there is no need to compute on an average market value, because question says that whatever is the book value of this car, 20,000, I paid the same amount. So that means whatever is the on an average market value of the car, I paid the same amount. So what is the taxable value of sale of movable asset in this case? Nil. Because whatever is the book value, I paid the same amount to my employer, so there is no personal benefit to me. But technically there is a perquisite, the value is nil. If understood, please raise your hands. Next point. In the same question, in the same point, in fact, another point. The same car which I purchased for 20,000, I sold as an employee the same car after 3 months for 32,000. Can you think logically the treatment of this point? Though I have not told you the treatment of this point, but can you think logically what is this now? The car which I purchased for 20,000, within 3 months I sold it for 32,000. So logically, what should I do with this point?
Short-term capital gain.
No, but your one thing is correct that it could have been a capital gain. It is not a capital gain, it could have been. I purchased a car for 20, so it is my asset. I am selling it for 32. So one fact cannot be denied by anyone, that there is 12,000 gain. Sorry, there is a 12,000 gain. Please raise your hand if this fact is clear. That there is a 12,000 gain. No one can deny this. If it is clear, please raise your hands. So this gain is neither a salary income, because there is no employer-employee relationship. The relationship is of purchaser and seller, so there is no salary. As far as this 12,000 is concerned, it is not house property income because it is not a rent. It is not business income because selling car is not my business. It could have been my business also, or it can be my business also, but as far as the information given is concerned, anyone can say clearly that whatever information of Dr. Kumar is given in the question, it doesn't seem that the person or Mr. Kumar is doing any business. So I'm saying that it is not my business. Then it can be a capital gain. And yes, because whenever you sell anything, or in fact, to be more precisely, I'm using the word capital asset. Whenever any person sells any capital asset, gain or loss is computed under the head capital gains. Detailed discussion I will do when I will discuss the chapter capital gain. But for the time being, since one point has covered, so let me give you a brief idea about this capital gain. Whenever you sell any capital asset, gain or loss has to be computed under the head capital gain. So the question arises, what is capital asset? That I am not discussing right now. But in my example, this car is my personal car. And whenever you sell personal movable things except jewelry, then these are not capital assets. Whenever any person sells personal movable items, it can be my personal laptop, it can be my personal scooty, it can be my personal car, it can be my personal shoes, it can be my personal watch, it can be my personal clothes, anything which is personal, if movable, except jewelry. Jewelry, even if my personal, is a capital asset. All personal belongings except jewelry are not capital assets, and if these are not capital assets, you are not supposed to compute any income under the head capital gains. So in this case, this car is my personal and it is not jewelry, so I will not compute capital gain. So this 12,000 will not be taxed anywhere while paying tax to the government of India. It is your personal item, and there is no need to compute loss or profit in case of personal items. That's it. Is the point little bit clear? That this 12,000 gain, car which I purchased for 20,000, within 3 months I sold it for 32,000. I am making a gain of 12,000, but it is not taxed anywhere. It cannot be taxed as per the provisions. I am not supposed to include this 12,000 income because it is my personal asset. And if it is not a jewelry, it is not a capital asset. And if it is not a capital asset, you are not supposed to include this income or loss at all. Whether it is loss or profit, it is of no use under the provisions of the Income Tax Act. If you have understood this point, please raise your hands. Very good. Now, one question can also come in your mind, that how can you say that the gain is 12,000? Some of you might be thinking that I am selling this car after 3 months. Some of you might be thinking that why not to deduct depreciation of 3 months also? Some of you might be thinking that from 20,000 I should deduct the depreciation of 3 months and then I will say that remaining is the gain. But no, that is also not possible, because everyone cannot deduct depreciation. Depreciation can only be deducted if you are a businessman and if you are preparing P&L account. Since it is my personal item, there is no question of any depreciation. Depreciation deduction is allowed under the provisions of Income Tax Act only and only when you are a businessman. So in this case, this is my personal item, so that means I cannot deduct any depreciation. Detailed discussion on depreciation I will discuss with you in the chapter PGBP, Profits and Gains of Business and Profession. Income Tax Act is a subject which cannot be read in isolation. Every topic might be having some relevance with another topic. So in this question, I have to tell you some point of capital gain. I have to tell you some point of depreciation. The depreciation concept don't apply here. If you are having this confusion in your mind that why I am saying 12,000 gain, it might be because some of you must be thinking that why not to deduct depreciation of first 3 months from this 20,000, then you see the difference. My answer to this question is that depreciation is not allowed on personal items. It is allowed only when the assets are used for business purpose. This car is personal, no question of any depreciation. This is first clarity which I think you are having. Second clarity, you cannot compute this income under the head capital gain because all personal movable items except jewelry are not capital assets, and if these are not capital assets, there is no question of any capital gain. If these two technical points are cleared, though not in detail I have discussed, but still for this level of question, if it is clear, please raise your hands.
Sir, let's say for any immovable assets such as real estate or anything else, then also
Repeat.
For any other immovable asset, does that hold as well?
Yeah, of course. Any other immovable or movable?
Immovable, real estate or something.
No. Immovable personal is capital asset. Like if I have my personal house and if I sell it house, I have to compute income under the head capital gains. All personal immovable properties are capital assets. I'm talking about only personal movable.
All right, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, next point now. I hope the point is little bit clear. That point D was giving me 3 different treatments. There are 2 perquisites and 1 small concept of capital gain. Though that concept of capital gain is not used in the fair question, but it has to be a part of my note where I will tell to the examiner that there is no use of this 12,000 gain. Just because anything is used in the question or will give you the answer, it doesn't mean that you will ignore or you will not give the explanation of other irrelevant points. If some point is given in the question, it might not be used in my numerical for calculating the answer, but it should be a working note. It should be a part of your question in the working note so that examiner knows that you know the concept, why it is not used. E point, medical reimbursement for the treatment of Dr. Kumar himself in a government hospital. Any answer from your side? What is the tax treatment of this point?
So this is perquisite of medical facility, and
Yes.
this is exempt as the treatment is provided in a government hospital.
Yes, 100% correct. Perquisite of medical in India, if in a government hospital, totally tax free. Next point. Point F, I will tell you later on. Later means when I start doing this numerical. Point G, he contributes premium of rupees 5,000 to the LIC, Life Insurance Corporation. Any answer from your side? I contributed 5,000 towards LIC. Any answer? It is my deduction under section 80C. Whenever I save any personal or whenever I do any saving investments, etc., that amount is eligible for deduction under section 80C. In the next class, we will start the topic of discussion of deductions under section 80C to 80U. Till that time, you please remember that it is deduction under section 80C. That's it. You are required to compute Dr. Kumar's income from salary for the assessment year 21-22, assuming he has not opted for optional taxation scheme under section 115 BAC. So now the question is clear that you have not opted. If you have not opted, then there is no need to think anything. In case you have opted for optional taxation scheme, then also you need, then only in that case you need to carefully check which benefits are not allowed and which are allowed. In case you have not opted, then it is very easy. No need to think, you simply remember the provision and apply it. And make sure I'm not computing total income, I'm computing only salary income. So let us start discussing this numerical. So I'm discussing one question from my book, Concept Building Approach. It is given on page number 4.98. And it is problem number 22. Now let us start it. First of all, question says that you compute only salary income. So computation of income under the head salary. Of Dr. Kumar for the assessment year 2021-22. Basic salary 5,000 per month. $60,000. Bonus 7,500 per month. 90,000. HRA. Now taxable value HRA, I need to take the help of working note. Taxable HRA, note 1. Now make sure that whenever you attempt any numerical, do not start from note. Examiner is not asking for these working notes. Though you have to prepare working notes, but examiner is asking from salary for salary income. So be a professional in your approach and only present first the format of computing this salary and then you start from working note. So leave some lines blank whenever such question comes. How many lines to be left blank? That depends upon your judgment, knowledge and your experience. Then only start working note. Like I have first prepared this column where I will compute salary income and then I will prepare working note, note 1. Computation of HRA exemption. Don't write short forms, write full form. I might be using some short forms, otherwise you must use full forms. How much HRA is received out of rupees? It is 900 per month, so 900 into 12. Out of rupees 10,800 received as HRA, least of the following is exempt. Now, don't simply write salary. Write complete language. Salary for this purpose means. Salary for this purpose means, or salary for this purpose is equal to basic salary 60,000. There is no DA forming part. Then commission based on fixed percentage of turnover achieved by the employee nil. This is salary. So what is my first point? 50% of salary. So it will be 30,000. But write the theory also. Being, just don't write numerical figure. Being 50% of salary, because house is situated in Delhi. In Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta or Madras, 50%. Second, HRA received 10,800, being HRA actually received. Third point, rent paid minus 10% of salary. How much is rent paid? 950 into 12. So it is 11,400. Rent paid minus 10% of salary. 10% of salary means 6,000. So it will be rupees 5,400. Being rent paid minus 10% of salary. So what is least? 5,400 rupees. 5,400 being the least is exempt from tax. So the fare, what you will write? Taxable HRA. I received 10,800 and exempt 5,400. So coincidentally, the same difference is taxable. It is coincidence only. Otherwise, the exemption figure can be different also. Is taxable HRA clear? If yes, please raise your hands. Okay, but don't you think that there is some problem? Is the question that how can he pay rent to his own HUF has not come in your mind? Point C says he resides in the house belonging to his HUF. Don't you think that something is not correct here? Don't you think that anytime a question can come for Dr. Kumar that you are residing your own HUF house? How can you pay rent to your own HUF? Is this a valid question? Yes or no? Please raise your hand if you think that what I am saying, that how can I reside in my own house and pay rent to own? I'm residing in the house which is of my own HUF and I'm paying rent. Is it correct? Don't you think that there is some problem here? Or are you also facing this dilemma in your mind that there is something which is unusual here, that he resides in the house belonging to his HUF and pays rent? Those who are thinking that yes, there is something which is unusual, they please raise the hands. Okay, so only 2 or 3 people are feeling it as unusual, rest are clear. Then it is strange. If you are thinking that it is not unusual, then there is some problem at your end. It is a little bit unusual. Tomorrow anyone can say that I am residing in my own house and I am paying rent to myself. Anyone can say that this is my own house and I am paying to myself a rent of 20,000 per month. Anyone can say like this and they will claim HRA exemption. Most of the people in India, or in fact you can say there are large number of people who are salaried employees. Most of the people get HRA. Most of the people must be living in their own house, and tomorrow anyone will say that I'm living in my own house and I'm paying rent to myself at 20,000 per month, and everyone will claim HRA exemption. So that is not allowed. You cannot pay rent to yourself. In my case, in this case, I'm not paying rent to myself. I'm paying rent to HUF. So practically, what is happening here is, that is only for your clarity. What is happening is, Miss Dr. Kumar, he is Dr. Kumar. He is living in a house, and this house belongs to HUF. The name of this HUF might be Kumar HUF. If you have seen the PAN cards, in case some of your parents might be having their HUF also, you can see their PAN cards. This is the PAN card of Kumar, where Mr. Kumar is an individual. This is the PAN card of Kumar HUF, and this is of HUF. Point is, can Kumar pay rent to Kumar HUF? Answer is yes, it is allowed. Tomorrow, if this house is belonging to parents of Kumar, let us suppose there is no HUF, one human being Kumar, and these are parents of Kumar. But this house is not owned by Kumar, this house is of parents. Can Kumar pay rent to the parents? Any answer from your side? Can I pay rent to my parents? Can I say that I'm living in my parents' house and I'm paying rent to my parents? Can I say this?
I guess yes.
Yes. Yes, I can pay this. Department says we have no problem. You cannot pay rent to yourself. If the house is owned by you, you cannot pay rent to yourself. This house is my parents' house. I can pay rent to my parents, no issue. This house is also not my house, because this house is of Kumar HUF. I can pay rent to my HUF's house, no problem. Because what will happen is that whatever is the rent of mine, suppose rent is 10,000 per month, it becomes income of another person. So department says we have no problem. So whatever is the expense of one person, that of course becomes the income of another person. So department says we are not losing anything. If one person is showing the expense, other person will have to show it as income. I am paying rent to my parents. Now if my parents don't show this as their income, then it is tax evasion and my parents will be penalized. So one thing which you should remember is that you cannot pay rent to yourself when you are computing HRA exemption, because this house is owned by you. If this house is not owned by you, you can pay rent to anyone. There is no problem. Please raise your hand if the point is clear. So many times such confusion comes, so I wanted to remove this confusion from your mind. Rent even to your own brother, own sister, own parents is allowed while computing HRA exemption. There is no issue. But make sure that the house is not in your name, and those people who will receive the rent, they must have to show that income under their head, income from house property. Otherwise, it's allowed. Next point now. So HRA is clear. Next point. The company has provided with him a car. Now it is a perquisite in respect of car. Without driver, having engine capacity less than 1.6 liter, recovers 100. Can you tell me the answer? What is the value which I will tax? Note 2. Can you tell me the answer?
Sir, 1800 per month.
1800 per month. For how many months?
5 months.
Sir, 5.
5 months. Yes. Because the same car was purchased by Kumar on 1st September. So I was using the car only when this was owned by. So I got this car for 5 months, April, May, June, July, August. And if you remember, when car owned by employer, expense incurred by employer, car capacity less than 1.6 liter, use official and personal, the answer is 1800 per month or 2400 per month depending upon the engine capacity, plus 900 per month if driver is also provided. In this case, driver is not provided, the car is less than 1.6 liter, so the answer is 1800 per month into 5, it becomes 9000. Next answer. But do remember that you have to give reason. Okay, presentation must be clear. Like I have written note 2, here you have to write that here motor car is owned by the employer. Every reason must be given. You are not supposed to compute clerical answers, or you are not supposed to behave like a person who simply note down the thing. You have to act as a person who is willing to give explanation also. Here motor car is owned by the employer. Owned or hired by the employer doesn't matter. Okay. Expenses are incurred by the employer, use official and personal, etc. So this is the reason which you should give. I'm not writing the reason now. I think you can easily write it. Then another perquisite. Right here, note 2. Then perquisite in respect of sale of motor car. So on an average market value 20 and the same value I purchased it. So what is the personal benefit? No, nil. Then you have to simply write note 3 that personal movable belongings. Detailed explanation later on when we will discuss the chapter capital gain. Personal movable belongings except jewelry. Jewelry, even if personal, is a capital asset. Capital gain or loss has to be computed. Personal movable belonging except jewelry are not capital assets. That's it. And thus thereby there is no need to compute capital gain. Medical reimbursement. This is perquisite. In a government hospital, exempt. So that next point is interesting point. The company has taken a personal accident policy for him. The annual premium being 1300. Is there anyone who can throw some light on this point? What do they think about this? Logically, you should think. Ignore the concept. Logically.
Is a benefit and should be taxable. Benefit, personal benefit shall be taxable.
Why it is personal benefit?
Because let's say if a company doesn't take insurance, I would have to take one. That's why.
But in case I'm not interested in having any insurance, then I don't like insurance. So what? Are you getting my point? I don't like insurance. So if company has taken, I will say that I don't like insurance. So what is the personal benefit? Anyone who can explain this point, or who can discuss something about this point? It might look personal, but technically it is not personal. Personal is that which I have taken. This policy company has taken. Suppose I have taken the policy, and if that premium is paid by the employer, I will say that it is a perquisite, I will tax it. But this is when I have taken the policy. My company was not at all aware. My company was not at all interested. I purchased life insurance. I purchased life insurance policy from any insurance company. I am supposed to pay the premium, but my company pays that premium. It is a personal benefit. It is a perquisite, because paying premium was my obligation, which my employer has met. So that is a perquisite. I will include it. Have you understood this point, which I have explained just now? That if I have taken the policy, it is my duty to pay the premium. I am not paying it. My company pays it. So I will say that it is employee's obligation met by employer. I should include it as my income. Is this clear? If yes, please raise the hand. Had the policy been taken by me, it is my personal benefit. But in this case, what is happening? I have not taken the policy. My company has taken the policy for me. That is correct. That company has taken the policy for my benefit, for my safety. But I am not legally obliged to pay the premium to the insurance company. This company has taken the policy. Company has to pay the premium. I am not supposed to pay the premium, though it is for my personal benefit. But right now there is no personal benefit. In case the employee dies, and suppose the policy of 5 lakh, then this amount will be given to employee's family members. At that time, you can say that employee will get some benefit. Currently, I was not interested in any policy. My company purchased it. So why I should be taxed for this premium? Answer is I will not be taxed for this premium. Had I taken the policy myself, and when company had paid the premium, then I would have taxed that premium amount as my income. If yes, please raise your hands. Have you understood? If understood, please raise your hands. If not understood, you can still ask me the doubt. So you have to think very logically when you attempt any numerical. Logically, is there any benefit or not? So this is one logic, that if company has taken the policy on its own, though for my benefit, I'm not legally obliged to include this as my income. And second thing, there is a court case also on this matter, because so many times company take the policy to save themselves, not me. If any employee dies, then company might have to pay some amount to the family members. So company is saving itself from that burden which in future can come. Because when employee will die, company will get the amount which company had to give had there been no insurance policy. Now that insurance company will give the amount to the employee. So indirectly, taking the personal accident policy is for the company's benefit. Company is saving itself from in future unnecessarily heavy amount which has to be paid to the employee in case some unfortunate incidents happens in the factory or office premises. So you must remember that taking accidental insurance policies, even if personal but by the company, is not employee's personal benefit. That company has taken for its own benefit. And we have Delhi High Court case also. Let me show you that case, because any legal subject cannot be read in isolation. It cannot be read just on the basis of act, rules, notifications, circulars. It has to be accompanied by the provisions of the rulings of the High Courts and Supreme Court. So let me show you a ruling. In this matter. This is the point which you should remember. Payment by the employer on accident insurance policy taken for the employee by the employer. So the policy is taken for the employee, but who has taken this policy? Employer itself has taken the policy. Then that premium is not taxable in the hands of the employee. And the logic which I have given you, that logic, of course, the court has also applied if you have read that ruling, or you of course must not have read that ruling, and there is no need to read that ruling for your level. But that is a case of CIT versus Lala Sridhar in 1972. Delhi High Court has given this ruling that any premium paid on the accidental policies taken for the employee by the employer, that premium is not taxable in the hands of the employee. So logically also, as well as under this court ruling also, which came into the favor of the assessee Lala Sridhar, this premium is not taxed in my hands. If you have understood this point, please raise your hands. You are not supposed to remember these court cases, but you must at this level, but you must know that after 5 years or after 10 years, in case you join any service or in case you have your own venture, then you will follow everything which is based on law. So this point is not taxed separately. You can write in note separately, note 4. Premium paid on accidental policies taken by the employer is not taxed. So detail you can write to yourself. Next point now in the question is he contributes premium of 5,000 to LIC. Now till I discuss with you deductions, you must remember that this is deduction under section 80C. So note 5 you should write that Dr. Kumar is eligible. Even if something is not used in numerical for your fair answer, it does not mean that you will not explain it to the examiner the relevance of that point. When you write this line, it makes your knowledge and concept clear in the minds of the examiner, and you will get good marks for any level of examination. Dr. Kumar is eligible for deduction under section 80C for an amount of 5,000. For an amount of 5,000. Now, in numerical it is not used because I am not computing total income. Examiner has asked me to compute only salary income. This deduction is available after gross total income. So technically in numerical it will not be used. But in case I don't write it here, I will lose marks. If it is given in the question, at least tell in the working notes the use of that point. So this presentation you must remember. Now gross salary, how much is gross salary? 164,400 I think, less deduction under section 16, standard deduction. Taxable salary. $114,400. That's it. This is what the question is. If you have understood this question, please raise your hands. So I wanted to show you what type of questions can come at even highest level of this competitive exam as far as India is concerned. Civil services is considered as one of the toughest exam, which gives you the post of very high level of government like bureaucrats, IAS, IPS, IRS, IFS. In case you are interested, you must be confident that if you study your commerce in graduation years seriously, you can easily crack this examination. Those who don't study in graduation seriously, they face little bit difficulty, or not little bit, they face difficulty. They have to spend more time there. So this was the purpose, to show you that that exam is not tough. Seriousness and dedication is required. Now with this, we have covered salary. So salary is over from my side. In the next class, we will start a new chapter, deductions, under section 80C to 80U. Before discussing or starting the chapter house property, I want to finish this chapter. Salary is over. In case you are referring to my book, then you have to cover from salary all the illustrations, all the theory, all problems, and all exercise questions. In case you are referring my book. In case you are referring any other material, any other book, or any other material, then I don't know what is the structure of that book. But from that book also you have to cover entire chapter. And you have 5 days now to wind up this chapter. In case you don't plan your daily routine in such a way that you don't know what to do today and what to do tomorrow, then you are wasting your precious time only. And of course, you are wasting your life also in that case. Everyone must be having planning in the mind that what they have to do today or tomorrow. So I am giving you 5 days. So in my view, for a candidate of undergraduate level, after attending so many classes, now you have 5 days where you can wind up salary from any book, any material at any level. In 5 days, you have to wind up salary. This must be the target in your mind that till Saturday your salary must be over. So start solving or reading this salary from any material, any book, from anywhere, and accumulate your doubts. And whenever you have 4 to 5 doubts, you simply give me a call and get those doubts clarified. So that's all from my side for today. In the next class, we will be starting the chapter deductions. And because of admissions, we have missed some classes, so we have very soon break of the Shera or Diwali, etc. So in that, we will cover the course in extra classes. So that's all. Now you have to wind up salary in 5 days. In the next lecture, I will start with a new topic, deductions. Goodbye.